Okay, 7.6 notes, quadrantial angles on page 19. Today we're going to find the trig ratio of angles on an axis in the unit circle. So if you were asked to create a triangle at 90 degrees in the unit circle, notice you can't make a triangle. There's no way to connect this to the x-axis and have a triangle. So we're going to use the fact that this is a unit circle today with the radius of 1. When we did 45, 45, 90, and 30, 60, 90, we changed the radius to be either root 2 or 2 to make the problems easier. Well, today it's actually easier to have the radius be 1. So today it's a true unit circle. So if this point right here is 0, 0, notice that 90 degrees you are going up the length of the radius, which is 1. So the coordinate of this point is 0, 1, where 0 is the adjacent and 1 represents the opposite. At 180 degrees, now I'm going left 1. So the coordinates over here are -1, 0, where -1 is the adjacent and 0 is the opposite. If you keep going down here to 270, notice this is going down 1, so it's 0, -1. 0 is the adjacent, -1 is the opposite. And then finally, if you keep going around the circle, this is now right 1 from the origin, so 1, 0, where this is A and this is O. So adjacent sides is your x coordinate in the unit circle. The opposite side is the y coordinate in the unit circle. And then the hypotenuse is always the radius. And since this is a unit circle, the radius is 1 today, so the hypotenuse will be 1. So it says to make a sketch of the angle, find its reference angle, and then evaluate the function without a calculator. So we're going to do the sine of 90 degrees, so we draw our t. It's not possible to draw a triangle at 90 degrees, so this is when you would label the point. If this is 0, 0, you're going up 1, so the coordinate is 0, 1. We label the points A and O. I joke and call this AO, with a hypotenuse always equal to 1 whenever you're dealing with the unit circle. So now we have to find our sine ratio. Sine is so, O over H. So our opposite is 1, and our hypotenuse is 1. 1 divided by 1 is 1. For tangent 270 degrees, we have 90, 180, 270. So now we're down here. If this is 0, 0, going down 1, the coordinate is 0, -1. We have to label this point A and O with our AO with a hypotenuse of 1. Our tangent ratio is TOA, O over A. So the opposite is -1, and the adjacent is 0. -1 divided by 0, well, you can't divide by 0, so this is undefined. For C, cosine 240, you have 90, 180, 270. Notice 240 is less than 270, so this is not going to be a point. It's between 180 and 270, so it's going to be here. If this angle's 240 degrees, notice this goes past 180 degrees by 60 degrees. So now we have to remember our 60-degree reference angle. Opposite the 60 is root 3. Opposite the hidden 30 is 1 with a hypotenuse of 2. Left is negative, down is negative, where the hypotenuse is always positive. Now we're going to find the cosine ratio, which is adjacent, -1, over the hypotenuse, 2. You try D. All right, so you're going in the negative direction, so it's going down here. Since it's going down 1 is 0, -1. and then you label it AO. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, so it's H over O. So the hypotenuse is 1. The opposite is -1. So 1 divided by -1 is -1. Try E. Hopefully you realize that ends in a 5, so this is going to be a 45-degree triangle. So it's more than 180 by 45 degrees. The legs are equal. The legs are 1 in a 45, 45, 90. And the hypotenuse is the square root of 2. Left is negative, down is negative. Tangent is TOA, O over A. So opposite's -1 divided by -1, you get +1. Try F. All right, so you're going in the negative direction. So you've got 90 down here, 180, 270, 360. Add another 90 is 450. Another 90 is 540. So this does land on the axis. Notice that's going left 1, so the coordinate is -1, 0. AO with a hypotenuse of 1. We're finding the cosine ratio, so it's A over H. So A is -1 over the hypotenuse of 1, so you get -1. So now we're going to label this with radians. So remember you multiply by pi over 180, which this reduces to pi over 2. And you should have remembered half a pi is equivalent to 90 degrees. For 180, if you multiply by pi over 180, the 180's cancel, you're left with pi. And you should know 180 is equivalent to pi. For 270, you're going to get 3 pi over 2, or 1.5 pi. And 360 is a full circle, so you're going to get 2 pi. So same thing, if you have pi over 2, that's up here at the 90 degrees. Half a pi is 90 degrees at 0, 1. Heyo. At 180, at full pi around the unit circle, that's at -1, 0. Heyo. At 3 pi over 2, that's equivalent to 1.5 pi. So half pi 1, 1.5 down here. It's down 1, so it's 0, -1. Ew. And then a full 2 pi goes back over here. It's right 1 from the origin, so 1, 0, and ew. So we're supposed to find the tangent of pi. So it's half a pi, 1 pi. We are over here. Notice it's going left 1, so that's -1, 0. Ew, with a hypotenuse of 1. Our tangent ratio is TOA, O over A. So O is 0 divided by -1. 0 divided by -1 is 0. Remember, it's okay for the 0 to be on top. It's just not okay to have the 0 on the bottom. You can't divide by 0. For B, you're going 2 pi. So you have half pi 1, 1.5, 2. So we're over here. That's right 1, so it's 1, 0. Ew, with a hypotenuse of 1. Your cosine ratio is cut, A over H. So it's adjacent, 1, over the hypotenuse, 1. 1 divided by 1 is 1. For C, this is an improper fraction. We have to write it as a mixed number. So 2 goes into 7 3 times. 2 times 3 is 6. And then to get to 7, that's 1 more. So when we draw our picture, we have half a pi 1, 1.5 pi, 2 pi, 2.5 pi, 3 pi, 3.5 pi. So it's down here. Going down 1, that would be 0, -1. And then we label our AO with a hypotenuse of 1. We're doing secant. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So it's hypotenuse, which is 1, divided by the adjacent side, which is 0. And you can't divide by 0, so this is undefined. All right, for D, this is an improper fraction. We have to write it as a mixed number. So 6 goes into 13 twice with 1 left over. So when we draw our picture, you have half a pi 1, 1.5, 2. It's more than 2 pi, but less than 2.5 pi, so this is going to be a triangle. If the denominator is 6, the angle is pi over 6. Remember, this is equivalent to 30 degrees. So opposite the 30 is the small side, 1. Opposite the hidden 60 is root 3, and then the hypotenuse is 2. Right is positive, up is positive. You're looking for the cotangent ratio. The cotangent is reciprocal to tangent, so it's A over O. So from the angle, adjacent is root 3, opposite is 1. Root 3 divided by 1 is root 3. Okay, for E, this is not an improper fraction, so you can't write it as a mixed number. You're going in the negative direction, and it's less than half a pi, so it's going to be down here as a triangle. The denominator is 3, so my angle is pi over 3. Remember, that's equivalent to 60 degrees. So opposite the 60 is root 3. Opposite the hidden 30 is 1, and the hypotenuse is 2. Right is positive, down is negative. The tangent ratio, TOA, it's opposite over adjacent. So negative root 3 divided by 1 is negative root 3. For F, this is not, 4 does not go into 3. So it's more than half a pi, but less than a full pi, so it's going to be over here. The denominator is 4, so this is pi over 4. This is equivalent to 45 degrees. We know that the legs are 1, and the hypotenuse is the square root of 2. Left is negative, up is positive. We're finding the cosecant ratio, which is the reciprocal of sine. So it's the hypotenuse, square root of 2, over the opposite, which is 1. Root 2 divided by 1 is root 2. So whenever you see pi over 4, that's equivalent to 45 degrees. When you see pi over 6, it's a 30-degree triangle. If you see pi over 3, it's a 60-degree angle. If you see pi over 2, whether it's like half a pi, 1.5 pi, those kinds of things, it's either at 90 or 270. If you see pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi, so no fraction at all, it's either at 180 or 360.